all the way up to module 4, I believe. We're going to be talking about meta best practices. Nobody knows meta, but we know the vehicles, which are Facebook and Instagram. And the reason I'm kind of excited about meta being Facebook and Instagram is because I'm often at these franchising conferences and everybody talks about how they did Facebook and they did Instagram and it doesn't work. And I assure you it does, depending on what our account is or what our client is. With every franchisor we have, without exception, as a client, Facebook and Instagram is at least the second best source of deal flow, if not the primary, and it's neck and neck with Google. So if it's not, the number one source of deal flow, it's 60-40 one way or the other. 60% Google deal flow, 40% Meta, or 60% Meta, 40% Google. That's why when we're setting up our budgets, we're pretty close to. We start when a new client, we split right down the middle generally. 50% of our spend goes to Meta, 50% of our spend goes to Google until we see kind of which horse comes out ahead as far as. We have one metric really, which is closable deals in the pipeline. Right, that's the key metric.
Hey, Joe, sorry. One second. Can you share your screen real quick? I don't think we can see anything yet.
Oh, whoopsie.
There you go. Whoopsie again.
Yeah.
Firing all cylinders today.
Okay, perfect. That could have been one awful video. So thank you, Jason. And no thanks to anybody else who knew that and shouldn't chime in and save me on that one. Okay. So quick reminder about FPG, so what you're seeing here is stuff we've been doing, over the last 20-something years, working with 150 different brands. Now, when you're working with Meta, advertising with Meta, at the end of the day, if you're doing it well, you should see a cost per lead at $100 or less. Certainly under $150. You should see a lead to close ratio somewhere around 0.5 to 1. So you can put that in perspective. It'll probably close, as far as a lead to close ratio, less than Google, but way better than portals. So that's why we like it. And the cost per lead should be kind of equivalent to a portal, but more deal flow. So at the end of the day, when you math it out, we look for a cost of acquisition. So let me define that. If you the cost in advertising, not advertising plus retainers, but advertising to find a franchisee should be somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000. And then depending on your spend, I would expect you to be able to find anywhere from 6 to 10 franchisees per year using Meta. Any questions on that? Onward and upward. So the way you set up a campaign, we're kind of getting into the tactics. The campaign basically is structured the same way as you would set up a Google campaign. You have your campaign name, your different, your ad sets, and then your advertising assets underneath that. Jason, we always want to see some sort of rotation of artwork so we don't get into ad fatigue where there's diminishing marginal returns. Jason, how many ads would you recommend that somebody put in a carousel or put in a campaign?
Yeah, I mean, a healthy rotation at a minimum is probably about 5.
Okay.
But I know like creative resources can be pretty tight sometimes from, depending on the resources at hand. So, I mean, I'd like to aim for that 3 to 5 range.
Right.
And that gives us ample amount of A/B testing and really seeing what the market responds to. And then also on the retargeting piece, that kind of has its own philosophy, which I think we'll dive into a little bit later.
We'll dive into retargeting in a bit. And I will tell you, there's some odd trend that I haven't seen before over the last several months where the retargeting is defined as lead will click through on an ad, go to the website, but not convert. So those are the ads that trail that traffic around, until they do convert. That has been our best source of leads, and we lately. So for whatever reason, people are going to the website, not converting, and then they're converting downstream, which quite frankly is very consistent with buyer behavior. If you remember, going back a few modules, I was telling you that when we design a website, we've been able to ascertain that a buyer, so somebody actually buys a franchise, is on the website about 3.5 hours, 18 visits, but it takes them 8 or 9 visits to fill out the form. So if you think about it, that's a retargeting lead, right? So they go to the website, they don't fill out the form, but that's what buyers do. And then they come back to the website multiple times. Okay, and then they eventually fill out a form. That's the lead that you want, right? You don't want necessarily, you don't want them all, obviously, but you don't necessarily even have close to the same yield as somebody goes to your, clicks on that, goes to your site, spends 10 minutes on the site, fills out a form. Those are generally the profile of leads that do not buy. So real happy that seemingly there's a trend line, at least in the campaigns that we're managing, that it's skewing, the advertising is skewing to organic leads. In other words, we're confident the lead came off an ad, but they're going to the website directly, and then they're signing they're filling out the form, and then also through retargeting. Now, there's an odd thing, and this is kind of what gives us kind of fits in franchising, right? So this is not an FPG thing. This is a Facebook and Instagram thing. So when you advertise a franchisor with Meta, Facebook and Instagram, you are classified as an employment ad. And that's got some serious advertising limitations, right? And then because it's an employment ad, think about your ad copy, right? It's almost all your ads are going to violate HR laws, so they get flagged, right? And then sometimes campaigns get shut off, or advertising gets disapproved, so the campaign shuts off, and you really don't get any warning. So what happens when you're doing Meta? Look, on balance, it works, and it works great. It's just little things like that you got to pay attention to. So if you're going to do a Meta campaign, you got to watch it every day. Second, when you do a Meta campaign, there's the campaign you're running and the ads you're running, and then you've got this campaign ready to launch just in case the Meta police yank your ads because you violate an HR law, because you're not advertising for a job, right? So it's just kind of a weird, funny, not as in ha-ha, funny as in like stupid, interesting thing that Meta does to give us all fits. And I do think it frustrates a lot of ad agencies, and then they just don't know how to operate within those parameters to get a result. And then I think the conversation goes to Facebook and Instagram don't work, which I assure you is fictitious. But what are the limitations? So you just know what they are. You can't target by age, right? So that's age discrimination, because they use HR laws to kind of govern copy. So normally people, like if I'm running a Google campaign, it wouldn't be surprising if we just limit the ad ranges to mid 30s to mid 50s, because that's kind of the sweet spot for a lot of our concepts. But you can't do that here. You can't target by gender, so you've got to put that out to everybody. I was saying Bryce and I are working together on a concept, and it's going to be auto rim repair, which they don't have a whole lot of female franchisees. It's kind of a guy's business. It's a dirty guy's business, right? So, but we're not going to be able to target by gender using Meta, but it will still work. All right. And there's a lot of other, you can't do other things that would work great, would be lookalike lists, right? Or affinity lists, where you upload, 1,000 demographic or psychographic profile of leads that mirror who we're looking for. And then, Facebook has good algorithms on the consumer side to advertise to those types of people. So you lose lookalike lists and those type of targeting capabilities because it's classified in that special ad category under employment. And it's you just can't. They're just not going to change it anytime soon. The whole community of franchisors has been on with Facebook reps the limitless amount of times for a limitless amount of hours, and the answer is always the same thing. We'll see what we can do, which is ultimately nothing. Okay, so you do focus what you can control. You can control the messaging and the creative. You can it's very effective of driving traffic to your website, which is your #1 franchise development tool in the history of franchise development. You have a good performing website that tells a good brand story, you're going to get a lot of deals out of that. You have a poor constructed website and a poor brand story, you might as well hand your leads to your attorney and have them close it, because you're just not going to get yield. And then lastly, it would be incentivizing a form fill with we like to do second rounds of content. And when we're designing a website, we do a downloadable ebook, anywhere from 15 to 30 pages of robust brand story, which actually drives them deeper into the funnel, hopefully meets whatever demands for information exist and readies them for conversation. But bring that all the way back to Meta. So Meta's traffic generation, your website is lead conversion, right? And then your lead nurturing content, which would include your ebook. Okay, that's what actually earns you conversations. Any questions on that? So like lead generation is a function of traffic generation, Meta, lead conversion, website, and lead engagement, which is your lead nurturing strategy. Okay. Now, when you're setting up your campaigns, this is the back end of a system. So, there's different advertising solutions you can pick from. If you pick the wrong one, that's going to affect your campaign. We always pick leads, not sales, right? So sales is typically geared after a transaction. But the way Meta does it, it's more geared toward e-commerce, so that's what their algorithms are kind of aimed at. So our recommendation is make sure you just check the lead selection, not sales, or you're really optimizing for commerce, which is not what we're doing, right? Okay. And then at the ads, we've done a lot of work. You can advertise through video, you can advertise static images, you can do a combination of both. We find the videos get a lot of views, they don't get a lot of conversions, a lot of click-throughs. And I have a bad explanation for that. So I'll call it the Joe Matthews, not the FPG explanation, in case I'm like terribly wrong, right? So my thought is that the videos are seen as an advertisement or a hard sell or a commercial. And we're dealing with investment opportunities where they might be more likely to respond to a video if we're selling our product, like Kevin Shaw's on the phone. They're selling great coffee or pastries. I think, the Meta or Facebook or Instagram lead, if that's the intention, would be to move more product, they respond well. When it's an investment opportunity, people are seemingly guarded with that, and they respond better to a static ad, which quite frankly is way less expensive to produce, which, video ad goes for over $1,000 a minute now. If you put that in perspective, that could eat up your budget pretty fast. So lead with the static ads. The way the static ads look, I'm just going to give you a diagram. There's a description on the top of the ad, then you have the image, okay, and then you have the call to action on the bottom of the ad. Now, what that looks like in execution would be something like this. So Juice It Up, we just did 2 deals in May with Juice It Up, which is, it's just an emerging growth chain, in a very crowded category. And they're split between Google and Facebook, I believe. but we do the tee up, which is the description up front. We like to lead with unit level economics because it's an investment opportunity. You know, they've done a very good post-COVID story. Here we lead with the average AUV growth since COVID, which is, the store sales are up 32%. So that shows you kind of there's a new normal, and the rising tide raises all boats, as who said that? One of the presidents. Oh, Kennedy. Okay, Kennedy said that. Okay, and then we go with the top 20% of stores. When you go with the top 20% of stores, I do think if you don't mix it up a little bit, it can create a credibility problem, because it begs the question, what are the other 80% doing, and why you only disclose it 20% or 1 out of 5, right? So I do think showing what high volume looks like is good. I do think showing average unit volumes is good. I also like showing what the top 50% are doing in a rotation. So here we're just showing you just kind of one of the ads, but you could see, our ad design is pretty similar. Lead with unit level economics, put in a strong graphic that really shows what the business is in a static image, and then a strong call to action, download information or learn more, right? Any questions on that? And there's about 4 or 5 different ad sizes in Meta you need to pay attention to, but your agency should know what those are. And you can use the same basic images, and it's just resizing. So it's pretty easy. And then when you're building your ad set, Jason, maybe you could talk a little bit about this particular slide. So when you're setting up your campaign,
Sure.
What the screen looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a step-by-step guide on how to actually set this up within Meta. So I'll start at the top right. Ad set name. That's basically how you want to identify the set of ads internally. So it's not public facing or anything.
So just give an example of an ad set name.
Yeah, so like outbound, website conversion, for example. So
outbound would be when the ad goes in the feeds, right? And inbound, and then there's retargeting, right? So it'd be
right. So outbound,
basically 2 ad sets. Yes.
Think of that as like the first touch. You're touching people for the first time and kind of educating them on the value proposition. And then on the other side would be retargeting, which is where we want to make the hard sell.
So 2 basic campaigns: outbound, which is your reached campaigns or your first touch, like Jason was saying, and then retargeting is when they're actually responded to your offer, but they didn't convert on the website.
That's right.
Then conversion.
Yeah, conversion is basically like, where do you want them to take an action? So in this case, we're always driving people to a website. We don't necessarily want phone calls or people messaging you guys on, WhatsApp or the Facebook Messenger or whatever.
Which they're not going to do anyway.
They're not going to do that.
The buyer journey.
Exactly. So
always drive the traffic to the website, which is the top. Okay. And then performance goal.
Yeah, performance goal is basically that's us telling Meta, what do we want out of this campaign? And the default one that we always go to is maximize number of conversions. So in this case, the conversion is being taken on the website, which is a form fill. So we basically want Meta to say, we want the maximum number of conversions or leads at the lowest possible cost.
Perfect. Okay. And then the pixel?
The pixel is the more technical component that actually tracks the activity. So let's say I'm Joe Bob. I click the ad. I fill out the form. Once that person fills out the form, that is then communicated back to Meta to actually track the conversion within Meta, if that makes sense. So it just helps us kind of put the numbers together and actually see what the performance is.
Perfect. And that's also what they use for retargeting, correct?
That's correct. Yep. Same exact setup, just the campaigns are basically the exact same setup. It's just the messaging and the audience that's a little bit different.
Okay. So before we move off of this slide, I just wanted you guys to know what your options were. If you check any of these wrong boxes, it's going to impact results. So getting these right in this order is really mission critical. to the overall success of the campaign. So I wanted to show you where I think where a lot of agencies fall down is setting up the campaign, right? So it's almost like designed to fail from Jump Street before you even spend your first dollar in budget. So it's not that, it doesn't work. It's that generally we find the campaigns aren't set up properly. Or if you go back to the advertising, I can't tell you the crap I see as far as creative. Sink your teeth into this mouthwatering opportunity. Own a t-shirt business that fits you like a tee. Make real dough with pizza. Like that will just, you might as well just burn dollar bills in your fireplace. It just doesn't work. We don't need to be creative with our creative, right? It's an investment product. So if it's an investment product, essentially, what's the first question people have? What's the cost of entry, and how much money can I make? So you've got to whet their appetite with the financials, because those are the first questions people ask. Okay, and then it opens them up to the rest of the brand story. Yeah, I'm going to stay on this for a second, because here's where I'm going to get all like cognitive behavior junkie on you. Yeah, because I don't know if I probably mentioned this before. Like I study a lot of disciplines. All cognitive behavior is also a discipline that I spend a lot of time. I spend many, many, many years studying. And do you guys remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs from Psychology 101 class when you guys went to college? Anybody remember that? Somebody come off of mute if you remember that.
Oh, Carl, we see you talking, but I think you're on mute.
Yeah, self-actualization.
Yeah, it's at the top of the pyramid, right?
There I am, baby. I'm there. See the behind me? There you go.
Carl, do you remember what's on the very bottom?
Yeah, food.
Yeah, survival, right? Okay. Right.
Exactly.
So in other words, if you don't meet the survival needs, who cares about self-actualization when you don't have a meal, right? When you're hungry.
My son started a video game where you started naked in the woods with a rock. That was it. And you got all the way to Kevlar and, a 50 caliber.
Wow. That would be the first person shooter version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Go figure.
You got it.
Wow. Okay. So there's, you got Maslow's hierarchy of needs and some sick gaming version of it. And then you go to, so there was a guy, I think it was Festinger, actually said, okay, let's do these. Is there a hierarchy in business? Because that would have some serious motivation applications. So so he did his work, and when he came out with the fact that he would say that there's no person is money motivated. He would say money is not a motivator; it's a primary satisfier, right? In other words, who cares about prestige? Who cares about the corner office? Who cares about quality of life? If you can't make your nut, right? So he would say there's a bottom line number you have to have, or you really can't hear anything else, or the job is not even a consideration. And then once your number is met, all the other things become motivators or more important. So money is a satisfier, dissatisfier, and something you got to get to first. Well, if that's the case, and Festinger is right, which I believe he is, that's got some advertising copy implications, doesn't it? Right? So, you've got to do the design equivalent in the world, in the immortal world words of Carl Morningstar. You got to have naked in the rock, okay? You're never going to get the Kevlar, right? So, or you've got to put the numbers in, or you're never going to get the brand story. I try to use everything, Carl, here, so nothing goes to waste. The whole naked in a rock, it was really hard to segue in. I just will tell you, I probably failed miserably, but I gave it a shot.
You can't unsee that either.
Speaking of, you can't unsee or unhear. I was telling my wife this story today. My mom called me up a couple of years ago and she said, Joey, now I know why you look so young. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I know you shave your face every day. I just started shaving my face and it's a great exfoliator. Look out. And I'm like, Ma, gosh, I can't unhear this. Stop. But that's what happened when you have 80-year-old parents. They tell you things about shaving that you don't want to hear and can never forget. Okay, so that probably has nothing to do with Meta. So on we go. Okay, yeah, then we get into setting budgets, which has nothing to do with shaving. And so we recommend at least 4,000 to 5,000 a month as a threshold. As a general rule, you don't want to get below, unless you're so geo-targeted, and you're just going through X number of markets, you could probably dip below that. But we see if you go below 4,000 or 5,000 a month, you're gonna see real inefficiencies. Once you get to 5,000 above, sometimes you kick into some significant efficiencies. We see this with kind of Google, and we see this with the Meta, that there's a certain range. If you hit the right number in that range, all of a sudden everything becomes more efficient and works better. So it's hard to predict exactly what the spend is. That's kind of a trial and error. But what is predictable is it exists, right? So you've got it. So even when things are working, you play around a little bit with your numbers. But you set the budget by day. So $5,000 allocation would be 170 by day. If you're going to get spammed, which, let's face it, it happens, right? It kind of goes in cycles. A lot of the spam leads come in after hours, late at night, and then from other countries. Again, it's hard. So you can geo-target it, but sometimes it still comes in. So you're getting spammed. We have a tendency. We like to tighten up the spend a little bit in the evenings, and then on the weekends. But we make sure that we're spending 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, generally, 7 to 9, is kind of your peak lead generating hours. Anything, Jason, you can add to that?
No, I think you nailed it. Just to kind of reiterate, I think sometimes it is trial and error, where it's like, how do we find that sweet spot? And again, trial and error. So, but again, I think that the 4,000 per month threshold is like bare minimum. 5K per month is really where we start to see at an aggregate the optimization really. And
accelerate. I'm going to say most of our clients are, if they're not advertising in the United States, significant regional ad spend, right? So that's where we get to the 5,000. Now, the other thing, Meta will make forecasts, and the forecasts you should crush, right? So in this particular forecast, they're going to say you have 13 conversions, which would be $150 per lead. But we do better than that. We look to get it under 100 a lead, and then so we'll monkey with the formula till we're at or we're below 100. $75 a lead is if you're in a category like food or where there's there's some level of interest, you should be able to maybe even get it to 75. Any questions on that from anybody in the field? Going. Okay. Now, there's also, when you're programming your campaigns, you have some say as where the campaign is shown. So we recommend Advantage as a place to start, and Jason will talk to you a little bit about what that means. It does mean your ads will show in YouTube. YouTube, depending on where YouTube is, can be a spam factory from time to time. So you really gotta watch the spamminess of it. Sometimes it goes in cycles, but the bots can sometimes get kind of zoned into YouTube. So which would be covered under Advantage. So Jason, why don't you talk about the difference between Advantage and manual?
Yeah. It's pretty cut and dry, actually. So Advantage Plus is essentially utilizing Meta's entire family of apps as an inventory for ad placement. So, for example, if we, were to go with the recommended Advantage Plus placements, our ads would show on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, the marketplace, Reels, basically anywhere that Meta thinks that there will be a conversion.
Oh, I messed up. I was confusing Performance Max with Advantage because YouTube was Performance Max.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Advantage.
So performance.
Okay, scrap what I said earlier. Keep going, Jason.
The philosophy was right though. Like what Joe was mentioning, YouTube is a part of Performance Max, which is Google's version of Advantage Plus. So, but yeah, that's Advantage Plus manual placements. One of the things that we will do, we actually have a pretty decent clip for minimizing spam on Meta, but it does happen from time to time. So if we do start to see an uptick in a trend in spam, we will switch this to manual placements because this gives us a lot more control on, like, if we see all of our conversions are coming from the Facebook feed, then let's just focus our budget on the Facebook feed, or if it's on Instagram or the marketplace or whatever. So that's kind of the core differentiation. Advantage Plus is kind of like, Meta, go do your thing and go get us conversions. Manual placements is more of you dictating specifically where the ads are placed.
Yeah, and actually, for the last 6 months, if there was any spam at all, it's been on the Google side of the house, not on Meta. We're getting rave reviews on Meta in particular over the last 6 months. We just had, just wrapped up our May results meetings with all our clients, and you just keep hearing, I couldn't be any happier with Facebook. The ads are qualified and the ads are responsive.
Yeah, I would say, just to piggyback off that real quick, is we are seeing a shift in budget allocation towards Meta, and for good reason, because Google does have a tendency to be spammy, 20-30% of the time. But yeah, so I mean, it is interesting to kind of see this shift in quality, because I mean, I think to Joe's point at the beginning of the call, it's like most people wouldn't think that Meta would work for deal flow, but here we are. It seems to be working, relatively well for the past, probably 3 to 6 months.
Then if all you had was $5,000 a month to spend, I'll tell you, generally, when we're up against that, we would spend it on Meta. And then we roll in Google Ads because you get more ad volume, so you get more at bats. Yeah, Google would get fewer leads, but because they're looking, on the search campaigns in particular, because they're looking for business like yours, that's the best leads you can get. This is more of a, Meta's more of a reach campaign. They're not looking for you, but you're intersecting people who are most likely to buy by demographics or by psychographics, with your ad copy. Any questions on that? Okay. We recommend, the other thing I see where ad agencies and franchisors break down is sometimes in ad sizes. So what they do, what Meta does, is if you don't have the right ad size, let's say a story ad, right? It's 1080 by 1920. So let's assume you've got one ad size and it's not 1080 by 1920. Meta is going to reformat that ad, and they're going to put in their own design elements. So did you guys ever see, like on your Facebook, you get an ad, and then all of a sudden there's kind of a weird banner, and it's not brand colors, and then there's like fingers or thumbs or emojis sticking up, and and you're like, that just doesn't look right. It kind of throws off the ad, and you kind of wonder, boy, what was the ad agency thinking about when they designed that ad? They didn't design that ad. So Facebook or Instagram designed that ad because it wasn't the right sized ad, programmed into the feed. So anybody have those, ever see those ads and you're like, it leaves you kind of like with a, huh? Anybody remember anything like that? And then on the video, Jason, could you talk about the video sizes?
Yeah, so the video is actually pretty much similar to the images, just it's the actual type of format that's being used, or file type, I should say. So use the top half sizing as a resource for both static and video assets. Just a matter of like, what do you want that video content to?
Yeah, so I use InVideo when we're doing editing, for instance, and when we're doing a video ad for Fran Dev, you get three choices. You can do, vertical, and then basically think telephone, right? You can do horizontal, think landscape rather, is to think desktop or laptop, or you can do square. So if you look at the image size, like news feed, you see 1080 by 1080. Well, that's square. So that's where you'd put that at. Story, 10 by 1920. Well, that's vertical. That's vertical, right, Jason?
That's right.
Yeah. And then the news feed, that looks vertical to me. And then portrait, okay, that's and then landscape is obviously landscape. So, so those three ad sizes that are pre-programmed into a lot of video editing will work. So you don't use one, if you're going to do video ads, don't use one size, use three.
I will say, just to piggyback off of that real quick, Joe, you alluded to this where Meta, if you don't put reins on the brand standards, they will go absolute ham with their creativity, where they'll basically totally change. Like, you can input, I want this image to be my ad, but then they'll put like random banners or fingers or emojis or something. And so
even non-standard brand colors like brown footers on purple ads I've seen. They'll
just make stuff up sometimes. It's like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but they've done a pretty good job at hiding those pieces of functionality where you can actually go in and turn those off. So I think we can maybe dive into that in another time, but
I think that's good to make the point that that's a controllable.
Definitely
right?
controllable.
But they bury that functionality, kind of deep into the system, right? You got to know where it is. And if you set up these campaigns on the cheap, in other words, you don't do all the ad sizes you need, or you're not paying attention to brand standards, those are the things that are going to happen. And I see that in my feed, my Facebook feed, all the time. And that's on the agency, not programming a campaign correctly.
I think my favorite part about the whole system, though, is when they pick like the worst music possible to overlay with your ad. Like they'll randomly throw like a I don't know, some TikTok song or random pop song on there, and it's like just doesn't make any sense. And so it's very much controllable, but it was very they purposefully hit it, I'll put it that way, to basically force you to use like their AI and ML models to optimize for performance. So,
let's assume they don't know what ML or AI is. What is?
Artificial intelligence. So basically, like artificial intelligence and machine learning. Meta uses these in their advertising targeting, and basically says, "Oh, well, we're going to try out all these different variations based off of our parameters that we tell them, like, hey, this is what we want our campaigns to look like." They'll basically go into that learning mode and test a bunch of different variations. Depending on the best performing one, they'll use that one moving forward. So when you hear AI and ML coming from Meta, artificial intelligence, machine learning to optimize for ad performance or conversions.
And if you don't turn that stuff off, you're going to get like musical accompaniment like polka music until the machine learning says, hey, this isn't learning, after they burn your budget.
Yep.
Yeah,
just like that.
So just use your intuition and don't use polka music by design. Right. Okay. Now I want to talk about something that Facebook has, which can be a benefit or can also be a huge liability, depending on your objectives. So they have their own form. So if you think about the critical path on the advertising, right? So you've got we told you before, use an ad as a traffic generator, direct the traffic to your website where buyers want self-directed information, right? So they can do the self-directed research. And then they can request more information by filling out a form. Well, with Facebook, they have their own form. Now, I think that's a little counter buyer journey, right? Because it intersects them with the form before they really get the brand story. So that does affect lead quality because they have a tendency to go much higher in the funnel because they don't have their brand story. They haven't pre-qualified themselves. However, it works, So like Leslie Cuban's on the phone, and Leslie is a franchise broker. If I was doing Meta, okay, because I have more than one bite of the apple, I would probably use native forms, because native forms, people will fill that out at a rate at least 200 or 300% more, okay, than they're going to fill out a website form. But how does that translate into results? It's not 200 or 300% more leads, at least on the franchisor side. I have no franchise broker corollary, but at least on the franchise development for a particular brand, doesn't increase your leads, closable deals in your pipe, okay, by 200 or 300%, but it does somewhere between 5 and 20%. So that's the difference maybe between getting 50 or 60 Facebook leads and getting 200, right? So 200 may not even be workable when you're adding in Google, when you're adding in broker leads, when you're adding in organic, might not even be workable. I like for a full-time equivalent franchise salesperson, I don't give them more than 200 leads. Okay, that tells me I need to make another hire. So there's real human capital concerns if you use Facebook native forms, because you're going to be burning a lot of your human capital following up and pre-qualifying. So if you have the human capital and you're willing to make the spend, then you do it, because it will add to your pipeline 5%, to 20%, but which could be, if it increases at 20%, that's a few deals a year. But you need the human capital. If you don't have the human capital and you're running a one-man band, then I would tell you don't do it. If you've got in the budget to hire a lead screener, 30 or 40 bucks an hour that you can get for 10 or 15 hours a week, I would tell you that it might be a good investment to do that. So that it's more than just lead generation concern. It's what's the best application of my human capital? All right, now the best application of a skilled franchise recruiter is not on the front end, it's on the money calls, right? Which is everything that happens afterwards. So use your time wisely when you're making those decisions. Okay, the forms also are pretty good if it's the design right. The design almost eliminates spam. So, are you a current franchisee? Do you have restaurant experience? You have different multiple choices of capitalization, net worth. What city do you want to franchise? What zip code? So we could tie it back to territory maps. Now, you can't, when you're looking at it on the phone, which is a lot where the leads come in, that's happening over multiple screens, right? So those forms will roll over to 2 or 3 screens. Bots don't do that, right? Bots don't go to screen 2, screen 3. Because I don't think I've seen the bot that's programmed to look for multiple screens. They're more programmed to scroll down. So it's in and of itself is a way to eliminate spam using native forms. So before I move on, questions on native forms. And I will keep moving on. Now, native forms can be integrated into Fran Connect or CRM, just like any other form is, right? Fran Connect actually has their own API that right for Facebook, where it integrates directly, or you can use things like what we do. We use Zapier for a lot of integrations, but but it integrates. You should be able to go contact information, right into your CRM, regardless of CRM. Somebody put up a hand? I heard a ding.
I did, Leslie.
Oh, hey, Leslie.
Okay. So I have a question. It's a little off topic from this, but I want to.
You want to talk about my mother shaving?
No, I definitely.
No, not that off topic.
I definitely don't want to talk about that. Is it okay? Can I ask?
Please.
we spoke about this in a prior session when we were talking about kind of buyer behavior and searching. I think it was more the Google conversation that some franchises, people are not searching for home services franchises.
Right.
So, but this is different. This is advertising. This is, do some of those same rules apply in the?
No. Thank you for asking that. So think in terms of incoming versus outgoing or reach, right?
Right.
So incoming would be what are people searching for?
Right.
So home services has low search volume. We just took on the premier hockey skating training franchise opportunity with schools all over Canada for elite players. And they got 350 NHL players have gone through the training. Nobody's searching for that business, right? Right. But it's a good moneymaker. We have to do it with all outbound reach, hoping to find hockey enthusiasts that will respond to our message.
So, but what I'm asking is, do you think this is an equally successful opportunity regardless of the category? Like, what about expense reduction consulting, right? Like, would that make sense for like an ERA or a Schoolie Mitchell to run ads on Facebook?
So my short answer, let me answer it a little bit more generically. So where there's low search volume, I would say on balance, it works well, right? And then if you're asking me specific brands, like B2B, it didn't work as well with Sandler, which was one of our clients. So we opted more to the B2B platforms like LinkedIn.
Okay.
Right. So, but on balance, I would say categorically, I would say yes. Google has their version of reach, right, through display advertising, and Meta does too, and it works well.
Yeah.
And you rely on it for when there's low search volume.
I mean, my perception, which I very well admit could be wrong, is that this is good for franchises where there's some consumer appeal, like juice. I mean, juice is obvious, right? And so like more consumer products or fitness or, things related to kids or, stuff like that, more so than other kinds of businesses.
Without knowing what the business is, I would always start with a Meta budget until it proves me wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. So even something like so Mountain Mike's is one of our clients and has been our client for years and years and years. You don't have significant multi-unit restaurant experience, you don't get a Mountain Mike's.
Mm-hmm.
But we're killing it on Mountain Mike's. Think how narrow the search is for that particular clientele. You have to own restaurants, you have to own multiple restaurants, you have to have all kind of food service experience, and it's high ticket. Yeah. It's a $600,000 investment. So now that might fit into your theory, right? Because it's a product and maybe not a service. But for me, it's more of how narrow is the buyer that you're looking for. So it's only failed me a couple times.
Okay.
Sandler being kind of one. People just didn't respond to Facebook for whatever reason. But those same people, did or didn't respond on LinkedIn. We're more apt to respond on LinkedIn because they're on both platforms, right? Who's on on LinkedIn is active on LinkedIn that's not active on Facebook? I'm sure there's few, but what's the exception? What's the rule? Christian, did that answer your question, Leslie? Before we move on.
I'm all good. Thank you.
Okay. So my answer would be to try it for at least 3 months and see what the data says. Okay, next.
So my question there, Joe, was kind of going to build a little bit off of Leslie's. Like, interesting with Sandler because coaching is one of those categories. It's like insurance, right? Like it's one of those categories that a lot of business owners need, but nobody wants. Right? Mm-hmm. I question if that even works well on LinkedIn because in our experience, we found LinkedIn to be incredibly cost prohibitive and we're B2B. And we don't find it really generates we get more action on a Facebook and a Meta for sure, way more than Insta. I actually thought we would have done better on Instagram just because we play with color so much. No,
Yes.
no, not at all. Almost
Remind me of
exclusively.
your concept again, Christian. Remind me of the brand.
We're instant imprints. So,
Oh, that's right. Instant Imprints. That's right. Yeah.
you know, so I just, oh, like I'm trying to think of where the heck would Sandler really place in a way that would really work for them, because it's a, you know, it would be like, you know, another brand like what, like the executive board or Tab
Yeah,
or whatever.
LinkedIn was actually a pretty
Alternative
decent
board. Boy, that's
source
a
of
toughie.
engaged leads for Sandler. Yeah, through the we're going to have a whole session on LinkedIn, but those conversation ads, which is you know, those little mailbox ads that we get, you know, look, it's spammy, but it's getting less and less effective. And Google has become more cost effective because they had to be, right? Because they're up against Meta, they're up against Google. But the one thing that LinkedIn doesn't have, which is the replenishment, right? So like at Google, you don't get diminishing marginal returns month over month, and you generally don't with Meta. You do with LinkedIn. You got to watch that budget every 3 months.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions? We touched on the considerations. We talked about the fields. The only other thing, you know, it's a really interesting trend. I want to go back to retargeting. You know, so a significant part of your energy needs to be looking at retargeting to go forward. I don't know why it is. I've seen it consistent across all the brands we worked in enough. I could say that that's probably a thing. And I don't know if it's driven by changes in algorithms. I don't know if it's driven in changes in buyer behavior. But retargeting, you need to invest time, money, and energy in the retargeting. You can just as you can retarget on the Google platform, you can retarget on Facebook. Now, when you're retargeting, what you want to do is you want to have rotations of ads. It's only going to be shown to candidates that went to your website, you know, but didn't convert. You know, you can be cheeky with it if you want it to be, you know, just an ad like, why did you go to our website? You didn't convert, or you know, what information you're missing, or you can, you can try different messages: AUV, startup cost, franchisee testimonials, messages from the CEO. We like, you know, different video ads. You're gonna do video ads. We usually run 20 to 30 seconds. I'm just taking that from other industries. I've found, as it relates to video in general, when we run video on websites, it's interesting. Videos don't get watched until it's kind of like blogs. Blogs don't get read, and videos don't seem to get watched until people are later in the process, and then they absorb everything. So I don't know if it's a unique buyer behavior thing where they think it's an advertisement as opposed to a necessary piece of information as part of their buyer journey. But by the time that they're further down in the pipe, and by the time they opt in, they do seem to watch and absorb all that information. But retargeting, if you isolate retargeting, we get as many or more leads off of retargeting sometimes than we do off the campaigns that we're running. And then we're also seeing a huge spike in the organic traffic. That means they're looking at our ads, but they either they're not using the call to action in the ad, they're going to the website directly, or we're hitting with retargeting and then they're going to the website directly, making it impossible to track back to the digital spend. You know, so what we do for our clients is we track very closely what the organic trends is month to month, and then we also look at it as it relates to our digital spends. You know, so we have like if there was no digital spend, you know, what's normal, you know, for that particular brand. And then when we're spending, you know, what's the delta on organic, so we don't attribute it, you know, to organic, so we can contribute it back to, you know, the digital spend to get a better estimate on, you know, cost per lead and cost per acquisition. Questions on that? So we talked about that already. On the retargeting, just when you're setting up a campaign, it's important to know when you go in, when you set up a campaign, it goes into learning mode, which means that's the machine learning Jason was talking about. Everything's inefficient till it moves out of machine learning, which usually takes about 50 leads. So that even might make the case to start with native forms so it gets out of machine learning faster. Okay, and then remove the native forms and then go to kind of regular advertising. I will tell you, just when you use the native forms, if you turn it on or off, it could break your integrations on your forms. So anytime you make any changes with any form whatsoever, always check your integrations after that, because they can be turned off or they can break. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and just go to kind of generic Q&A. Questions? I'll assume then that was all encompassing, answered every question you had, satisfied all your demands for information. And then I'm going to go to my request of you guys. So if you're getting value out of these sessions, my request is post what you're getting, the value and what you're getting from our expertise on LinkedIn this week, if you would. I'd like to take on 2 more clients. And the endorsements, we've always worked off well off a referral and well off endorsements, and not as well in a competitive bid situation against 50 million other ad agencies. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of posting the value you're getting out of this and the approach that we're taking, that would be very, very helpful to me.
Joe,
Do you do that on LinkedIn? I'm sorry?
Do you have something visual, like something, like rather than just writing a post, is there something that can be shared, that can be pointed to, along with an endorsement?
On my website, we have the videos posted, but I don't have anything prepared. No.
Okay.
But if you any endorsement for the ad agency portion of our business would be very, very helpful. However, you would write an endorsement. But thank you, Leslie. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And then if you have franchisors that use services like ours, we will do an audit, or you are a franchisor and you might be interested in putting your work up for bid. We will do a complete audit of your entire ad spend, identify what we see as inefficient, identify things that are working that you should never change, and then give you a written report. And we'll do that free, just so you can hear and watch us in motion. So you feel free to share that with any franchisor that you're connected with. And if you're a franchisor looking for, or potentially looking for a new agency, then I'm going to make you that offer. All right, everyone. Then 2 weeks from now, we got Leslie Broker. Look, I put you right up there, Leslie. I should use your picture. So we're going to be talking about franchise broker best practices. And that's going to be June 26, 1 p.m. So same bat time, same link, same bat channel. All right, everybody. It was great seeing everybody. Thank you again for your time. I know taking an hour in the middle of your week is a huge investment on your part, and I hope you got some value. And don't forget, 1 random act of kindness this week. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So.